Unlaced Podcast. It's actually not bad. It's really good, bro.
Welcome, folks, back to another episode of the Unlaced Podcast. This is going to be a special one, I tell you. There's a lot of build up to this one. We are going to do today an A-League overview of the current season and a bit of a preview for the finals coming up over the next few weeks. So I did want to do this big and grand, and I've gone and got three of my former teammates, three former bullies, I would say, of my professional career coming in as a young boy. But three of my good mates in Cameron Watson, Dario Vidosic, and Jonny Mckain. Boys, it's a pleasure to have you in the studio, and Jonny dialing in over Zoom from Queensland, mate. How we doing?
Thank you, JB. Excited. Thanks. Good to see you boys again. It's been a while, but I'm excited to feature on your podcast. And unfortunately, I can't be there with you, but looking forward to this chat, JBD. Good to see Dars and see Watto as well. So I'm excited.
Good to see everyone. And it's been, 10 years, 11 years now since we've all been together.
Ridiculous, huh?
Yeah. Thank you for having me on, and I'm sure it's going to be a great hour and a half recapping this, and maybe a few old stories come through.
Yeah, yeah, we might have to censor a few, but no. Jonny, I do have to give you credit. You were the first guest ever on the Unlaced Podcast, so this is the second appearance for you, and Dario and Cam, it's the first time, but well overdue. So, guys, to give it a little bit of a spin on today, we're going to walk through the season at hand because it's obviously been a big season in the A-League. It's been the 44th season of the National League in this country. And it's been the 16th league of the A-League, the newly formed A-League. And we've seen some progression this year on a range of things that we're going to get the boys' experts' opinions on. But I do want to go around the table. I might start with you, Jonny, just on a quick summary of the season. I guess how you felt the A-League was this year and how it's progressing and some of the news that's come out of this year.
I think it's been a fantastic A-League season, all things considered. Obviously, the COVID-infected final series and end of the season last year played a bit of havoc, and the season this year, albeit a slightly different season with some games played, over a series of weeks and some games spread out over, a 3-4 day turnaround. It's been good to see games midweek. The challenging part, I guess, for clubs and teams has been that consistency. It's not week-to-week football. There's been times where, for instance, Perth Glory's been on the road and they've played, 4 or 5 games in quick succession and then gone a couple of weeks without games. And other teams have done something similar. So, well played to Melbourne City. They've been by far and away the best team this year. Sydney FC started quite slowly, but then have come back into form in the back half of the season. But I've been really impressed this year with the amount of young players that have played throughout the league, a lot of young coaches that have tried their hand this year, and it's been really good to watch. I know we haven't probably had the metrics in terms of viewers and attendances at games this year, but from my perspective, I think it's been a really awesome season. A lot of young players, a lot of new players coming into the league. And overall, I think some really fantastic football. The final series has been really close to get to that top 6. And overall, I think it's been an awesome season.
Yeah, it's true. And literally, we're speaking now. We're doing this episode right now, folks. I think there's probably one game left in the A-League. So fortunately for us, Adelaide confirmed their place in the finals last night. So what Jonny's alluding to there, it was really close for teams to get in and out of the final spots. I mean, Dars, obviously Melbourne City and Sydney were probably the ones that confirmed themselves early, but the remaining 4 spots and just outside of the 6, there was some challenge there, wasn't there?
No, definitely. I think it would have been interesting if it did come down to the final round, especially for Wellington, who, considering everything they've went through this season, to be almost there towards the last round. I think it would have been awesome for them to have that final round at home. Would have been a big crowd, potentially to make it into the 6. So that would have almost been a final before the final. So, but I think Jonny done a good recap there. It's been a good season. A lot of youngsters, a lot of rookie coaches coming in, and it's been crazy with the COVID restrictions. And like he touched upon, just the schedules breaking up, games being cancelled, many games, playing a few away. So it's been a tough season, so you got to give credit. That wouldn't be easy as well. So overall good season, and I'm sure we'll unravel more of it as we go through it now.
Yeah, definitely. Camo, it's probably, I mean, we're kind of going through this now in the NPL, the boys representing the Moreland Zebras here in this room. So, but do you think as a player, obviously we've all kind of been there and experienced it, but as a player, it would be tough with COVID intervening and having to be aware of changing grounds and playing interstate when you could be at home. I mean, how do you think the league's been able to handle that this year?
I think they've done exceptionally well, just considering all the moving parts that have come with, with the pandemic. It's a bit different for us. We're working and playing here now. We're local, but the fact that best case, Wellington had to live in Sydney for the majority of the season, being away from their families for that long, especially if you got little ones as well, or ones on the way. It'd be very hard, and that's you got to give credit where it's due, and they've done an exceptional job. And from the outside looking in, you'd think that the federation and all the powers that be have made it as easy as possible for them. So got to give credit to everyone, not just the players but all the staff as well, because they're away from their families also. And it's made out for a good season. You boys have already said it. The amount of young players that have got a chance this season, coaches. It's been a joy to watch. So look forward to the finals, I guess, and hopefully there's no more curveballs apart from the one that we've got here in Melbourne at the moment, and we can just enjoy some good football.
Agreed. I'm surprised by the amount of young players. I think that's been one of the shining lights for me watching this year, just seeing how many young players have actually been able to come in quickly and make an impact. Before we do get into, I guess, our analysis of the season, it would be remiss of us to not talk about the new TV rights deal, which is going to be a bit of a game changer for our game in this country, because Channel 10 and Paramount have partnered up now to land the rights of the A-League in this country. So we do have to give an honourable mention to Fox Sports and all the work that they've done since the inception of the league. But this new opening, Johnny, into Channel 10 and Paramount, I mean, you've been aware of, I guess, some of the discussions for a while. It's probably taken a bit of a while to come out and confirm and go through all the details, but it's a pretty big statement for the game, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a great deal considering the environment we're in. If you look at purely the financial deal, pre-COVID, the A-League deal was roughly around 55 odd million. During COVID, it got cut to around the $25 million mark. So the valuation on this is around 40 million, and there'll be 8 million in contra, which is really important. It's going to go to advertising, going to go to exposure. Over the last 2 or 3 years, there really has been a lack of, I guess, that exposure side to the A-League. You walk down the street, you're not sure if games are on. There hasn't been a lot on TV. So there will be a lot of contra that will be pushed over the next year or two out to the general public to make sure that they know about the A-League. It's a brand new platform, Paramount Plus, which is obviously an American company, which is really exciting, coming to Australia in August, I believe.
What is that? Is that similar to like a KO or a Netflix? Like how do we what's
it's going to be a streaming platform. So similar to KO, Stan, all those type of platforms where it'll have sport, it'll have movies, it'll have that kind of breakdown, and just another platform to be able to watch some content. So I think that's the way everything's going, rather than having the historic Fox Sports where you've got movies, sport, everything for $100 odd bucks. There's going to be all these streaming platforms now where you can get your content, and people have a variety of subscriptions, I think, and even see what I might be able to fork out $8.99 a month. Mate.
We'll see.
Yeah, mate, don't worry. Mauling the pay packets, I'm sure he can.
I'll pay for yours too, Johnny.
But it's really exciting. There's going to be, obviously, you touched on Fox Sports. They've done an amazing job over the last 15 to 20 years producing A-League content and also the national team content. They have been the face of football, but it's going in a new direction with the A-League. We're not sure where the national teams will end up. They're a separate conversation, but the A-League will be on a new platform, which is going to mean new content, new commentators, a whole new way of watching the game. And I'm really excited to see how that progresses.
Boys, any comments on that from you guys? Obviously, you've probably never been around the country where we've had football on free-to-air unless Channel 31 back in the day. So
yeah, I think it's going to be. I think it's going to be refreshing.
Yeah.
Obviously acknowledge what Fox Sports have done, but I don't know. I think it'll be great. Free-to-air TV, new commentary, just new faces. Kind of just that whole new dynamic, new interface. Just looking at something that's brand new. I think it'll help the league. It'll put the league in good stead. And then just start with a brand new season and a brand new team that's looking over all the games. So depend whether whoever was going in there, I think that they'll recruit the right people. Kind of football smart, and just, have done very well in media. And
Yeah.
I
The
think
petition for Simon Hill, I think, started online to get him back
yeah,
involved in
I
football.
think he's.
which is,
I think he has to be in there. To be honest,
without question.
Yeah, that's someone that needs to be definitely involved. And I think if we look at the more grander picture, it's also exciting time for the A-League and the women's games.
Great call.
With the World Cup coming up. We got the Olympic Games coming up for both the men and the women.
Mm.
World Cup qualifiers started overnight, 3-0 win. So I think not just with the A-League changing the platform, and I think there's just lots of stuff to be excited about in Australian football. And then hopefully this is now, again, the start of something new, and hopefully we can build and create something bigger, because the football does deserve much more than we've been getting probably in the media and what Jonny touched upon, the commercialing and on the radio. And it is now, we're involved in football and you don't hear a lot about it. So
Yeah.
I can only imagine how hard it is for people that aren't involved, that aren't on the social media and all the football sites and follow the game as closely as we all do. So it's probably a bit harder. So hopefully that's something that Channel 10 really put effort into and really put the brand and the sport out there, and hopefully more people will come and watch the games.
Agreed. That's a great call. The Women's World Cup. I mean, to win that with Matildas, who are arguably one of the best teams in the world, that for everyone in Australia will be hoping that they can challenge to win the trophy. The timing of this is just incredible. And for those that don't know how big football is in this country, because obviously some people will have their say that A-League, the viewership dropped down this year, or it hasn't always been the most accessible to watch, or whatever it may be. But it is the highest participated junior sport in the country across all codes.
Yep.
So the reach of the amount of people playing this sport is why we want to see the game grow and get some of these kids to these games so that we can start to build on top of some of the foundations that are in place. But one area that's always spoken of, Cameron, we experience this now in the NPL, which is part of the thrills of playing in the lower leagues, is the promotion and relegation aspect.
Yeah.
It's always been contentious in Australia because we've always wanted to get a stable environment for every club and keep that going. But I thought it was interesting when I think Alessandro Diamanti said it, who's obviously the captain at Western United, an Italian footballing legend, said that's the beauty of football, is the promotion and relegation, the heartbreak and the triumph.
Yeah, well, look at all the just the emotion it creates. Like, promotion, relegation. It's teams are battling away to set, their livelihood, just not for themselves but for their fans, especially in other countries. So people that go and watch the game, they're literally, their pay packet goes towards watching those guys play on the weekend. Now women on the weekend, but we're put it in our position at the moment in our table. We're 5 points from the bottom and we're 4 points from the top. So we're stuck right in the middle. So if we can't
sleep at night.
Nah, exactly. And if at some point, whether it's now or whether it's in 3-5 years or whatever it may be, if we're able to transition into something or a model that we can have relegation and promotion, you will see, I think, bigger fanfare, bigger audiences, more people paying attention, because that emotion will be there attached to the game. At the moment, it's okay. You get probably 3/4 of the way through the season and you're sitting second bottom or third bottom, but you're not going anywhere and you're pretty safe. So not just for players, but for coaches as well. So, but that's our country's different landscape compared to Europe. So I think we've done well so far, but now moving forward, I think, things have to be put in place to try and get there eventually. Again, when? I don't know.
Yeah. See, it does for me. I've always been one that would love promotion and relegation, but then I look at it this year and I'm like, imagine if Melbourne Victory got relegated.
That's
That's not good for the league.
Nah, exactly. But I think that's one thing now, or Cameron was just saying, that'd be very interesting. You got Melbourne Victory, 1 point above Newcastle.
Yeah.
For both of them, their season ended quite a while ago, a couple of weeks ago, where they knew the top 6 was definitely out of reach. And imagine now, Newcastle have the one game in hand against Melbourne City. If they win, they would go above Melbourne Victory by, it would be 2 points, or even a draw would have them equal points going into the last game of the season, and relegation. So I think all eyes would be on those two fixtures.
Yeah.
So I think that would bring another element to the league where, it's just like in a league of 12, if you're sixth and you make the finals, it's a successful season. So I think you've pretty much finished at 50%. Your average, when you look at that, 6 out of 12, 50%, that's a success in the country. So I think it needs to be, teams need to try to push for more and to challenge, and especially now the Melbourne City and the Sydney, especially Sydney, who have been dominant now for the last few years and have been winning a lot. I think it can't be just, If we make the 6, awesome. We've had a great season. It's a success.
Yeah.
I think everyone needs to strive for more. And I think with a relegation, how far that is away, I think that's still a while away. But I think it needs to be put into place where we give these teams an opportunity for a second division and then say, okay, we give you time to build that. And then we start promotion relegation in 3, 4, 5 years, whatever that may be. But I think it's something that's definitely important to give also. A lot of juniors and younger players have had a chance now. Imagine then in the second division, and also for coaches and also for other players and in the NPL where there's good quality players that I'm seeing now that, you look against the teams you play and you're like, you know what, he could play.
Yeah.
So he should give other players a chance. And I think, the more the better.
Yeah. You know what, the alarming statistic that made me think, maybe we're closer than we think. And obviously, Johnny, there's probably a financial implication to doing this that we would need to sort of tick off before it ever got to a point. But Preston Lions, who play in MPL 3, the third division in Victoria, are averaging like 4,000 to 5,000 people a game this year. And they played the Western United youth team, reserve team. It's like they're is it under 21 stars?
Yep.
Yeah, so they're under 21 team playing the MPL 3 team. And the Western United senior team played that week, and I think they played in front of...
Under 23, sorry.
Yeah, 900 or 1,000 people out at Geelong. I can't remember.
Just over 2,000, I think, but it was still less.
It was pretty much the youth team played in front of a bigger crowd on the weekend in Division 3.
Yeah.
Which shows that there's interest in the local clubs and the local football. Maybe it's the branding of the clubs, the history with the NSL and the cultural backgrounds association that maybe are limiting this. But Johnny, I mean, do you kind of see it being close? Do you think we're miles off? Do you think we just need to focus on the 12 teams at the moment and getting them up and going with the new TV deal?
Look, the notion of a second division, I think everyone, not only on this chat now, but I think a lot of football lovers completely agree with. But when you break it down a little bit, you actually look at the finances and what we're trying to achieve. I still think we're a long way off. The NPL was brought in for a reason to be that so-called second division for a variety of reasons, and people have got different perspectives on it depending on where they are around Australia. It has worked, but in other cases it hasn't worked. So you've seen the second division push has come to the conversation more recently, but financially, we won't go into too much on this call now, but financially, having known a fair bit of the figures around how A-League clubs operate, what budgets they're at, and kind of the top-end NPL clubs, how they operate, and we're only talking a few in this country, there's such a big difference to what they need to compete at that level. Not only we're talking staffing costs and player costs, we're talking about facilities, we're talking about overhead, we're talking about stadiums, we're talking about rentals, we're talking about trying to produce commercial partners, we're talking about so many aspects of this that...
Flights and hotels.
Yeah, mate, travel, Australia is so big that the big costing is travel. So the second division, I think, is still a fair way away, whether it's a conversation for a dynamic of a north and a south, and there's kind of a hub, whether we look at something like what happens in America, and Dars touched on it, whether it's like a hibernation, a second division where you spend a few years in this second division and you show your worth and you show you can financially compete, and then you add value to the A-League, and then you are brought into the conversation of promotion. I think, getting back to your question, JB, I think the likely scenario is that there will be expansion in the A-League over the next couple of years, and I think Danny Townsend, the general manager for the APL, has come out and said that they are looking at expansion over the next couple of years. I think that will be on the radar more so than a so-called second division. Yeah. I mean, we've got to just look at what the point of the second division is, really. That's really what it comes down to. Yeah. And, you look at pure costings of it, there's a lot of players that you guys know that play in the local league that are earning pretty good money playing locally and also working. Why would they take a pay cut to play in the A-League?
Yeah, it's a common
second division,
pitfall. Yep. Yeah. A lot of boys I know in our league have turned down offers because financially it's not viable.
It's happened since the inception of the A-League.
Yeah. So, but look, all great points, Johnny. I think we are starting to have the right conversations. The game's starting to move in the right direction. Hopefully, with time, we start to see the progress that we're all looking for. But we're going to get into some of the fun stuff, guys. As mentioned, we are going to do a bit of an overview of the season. I've got the experts in the room. And for those that don't know, I probably should have said this at the start, but Cam Watson is an Adelaide United legend, played a stint at the Newcastle Jets. Dario Vidosic was arguably one of the most exciting young players to play in the A-League before he darted off to Germany. came back and played with us in Adelaide and was arguably probably the best Australian import or the Australian visa player in the league for the time being and had incredible stints with Melbourne City and Wellington. And Jonny Mckain, I mean, our former captain, our warrior. He would do anything for the team, and one of the great men, but had a one of the first real Aussies that I felt played for a long period for Wellington. And then had a great stint with us in Adelaide. Both Dario and Jonny also former Socceroos. So we couldn't have had better people to overview this season. And Jonny, Johnny's just moved his head there for those that hopefully saw that because he's got his Socceroo jersey in the background conveniently.
I didn't even notice that.
Oh, you didn't? One of them's the Olympic one, I'm sure. But Jonny, let's start with you. I mean, we're going to rattle off the bottom 6. So Melbourne Victory, Newcastle Jets, probably not the year they would have loved to have, not the year those two teams we probably would have thought they would have had at the start of the year. What's your take on Newcastle? And then we'll go into Melbourne after that.
Yeah, they've both had pretty challenging years for different reasons. If we look at Newcastle Jets, they obviously have the ownership issue that has been ongoing for quite a while. A number of A-League clubs have now chipped in and are funding that club to sustain it before they sell it off. But there's been some ownership issues there for quite a while. Newcastle is a huge region for football. It's a heartland. You know, when I was growing up and played in the old NSL, there was a massive catchment of supporters and people in Newcastle. And they're football mad in Newcastle, but they just haven't got it right the last few years. And if you look on paper at their squad, they've probably got a few of their players haven't quite been up to scratch this year. They haven't really invested in foreigners, which, as we all kind of know, if you get 3 or 4 of your foreigners right in most teams, then goes a long way to cementing your spot in the top 6. They've struggled in front of goals a bit this year. Roy O'Donovan's been great energy, great work rate, but he hasn't converted probably as many chances as they would have liked. And I think defensively they've missed Nigel Bogart a lot this year. He got injured for a period of time, and when he plays, not only is he a friend of ours, we'll put that out there, but when he plays, it makes such a big difference to Newcastle Jets side. So they've really struggled for consistency this year. They've lost, obviously, Steven Ugarkovic wanted to leave earlier on the year, and he's finally moved to Western Sydney Wanderers. He was a big part of how they played and a central cog in centre midfield. So they've really had a poor season from start to finish, both defensively, attackingly, and obviously from an owner's point of view. So they're obviously going to try and address those issues in the off-season. We've seen recently Craig Deans has announced he'll step down at the end of the year, and there's a lot of rumours that Arthur Pappas will be the man to come in and take them over and be the head coach and try and change.
Arch.
Yeah, but a lot of rumours out in the world about
breaking news, John?
that.
Is that breaking news from you? I don't know if that's
I'm reading that.
It's out in the media. Oh, right, okay, there you go.
Yeah, big Arch.
Yeah, so he's really well regarded, and I don't know if you guys know him, but everyone I've spoken to rates him really highly. So we'll see if that comes to fruition. So that's kind of Newcastle and Victory.
I'll give you a quick story on Arthur Pappas, Johnny, just to give you insight into the depth of football that man is willing to go. But he was like a junior coach in Victoria when I was coming through the ranks. And I think he might have coached me in like a state futsal team. So I always had a relationship with him. But then when I was at the AAS, they brought in a development coach. So he wasn't the assistant coach, but essentially he was just there to learn from the coaches and was living with us. And it got to a point, because Archer's pretty switched on and smart, that the coaches started to give him some responsibility, starting to let him take some tactical sessions, some video sessions, even run a few training sessions. And we rocked up one day. You'll probably, the inside AstroTurf in the kind of near where the recovery centre is and the coach's office is. And we walked in there once and we're going to do a video session, and it would have been like 9 a.m. And we walked in and Arthur's there sleeping on a couch with a soccer ball in his arm with his book out because he was watching the Champions League taking notes. So when we saw that, we thought, geez, this guy's taking his coaching very seriously. So it's no surprise. But just on Newcastle, I mean, Bogey's leadership would have been a big loss not having him throughout the season. But I think also...
You guessed?
Who's that?
That's my guard dog. Sorry.
Do you think the changing coach as well? I mean, I know Carl Robinson went to Western Sydney at the start of the year, but they did have a really good period with him. Obviously, the likes of Abini as well also had to change guard. So I think maybe that might have impacted a little bit.
Yeah, potentially. We've all had good coaches and ones that we haven't, become so fond of over our careers. And for some reason, when Kyle Robinson came to Newcastle at the end of last year, everything clicked, and they were playing great football. The boys really got around him, and there was a lot of excitement in the air for what Newcastle could do this season. But unfortunately, as we touched on, he left to West Sydney Wanderers, and Craig Deans, who came in to take over, you could probably say never really got them up to the level that they were previously under
Robinson. Yeah.
Robinson.
Yeah.
Robinson. So, mate, I think a head coach does make a major difference. I'm not saying that Craig Deans has had done a poor job. We really don't know the ins and outs of what's happened at Newcastle, but it just hasn't clicked for a variety of reasons. Like I said, defensively, the foreigners that they've brought in haven't quite clicked, and also attacking-wise, they just haven't scored enough goals. So it's going to be an interesting off-season if Arthur does come in and take over that Newcastle side.
Very. Now, Melbourne Victory, probably we all thought in this room that they probably would have had a better season. I know Grant Brebner was his first year as the full-time coach. He's been affiliated with the club for a long time. And some of the players he brought in, I mean, on paper, have had some incredible careers over in the UK. He's always had some young talent across Victory. So, I mean, they're a club that usually always are competing for finals, competing for championships. It hasn't gone their way this year, Jonny. I mean, what's been your perspective on that? Why maybe that hasn't worked out?
Look, it hasn't gone their way this year, and for A-League football, we need a strong Melbourne Victory. There's no doubt about that. They're one of the biggest clubs, and it's really good for everyone if we have a strong Melbourne Victory. But to say it's been a surprise that they're struggling probably isn't true. I mean, if you look at the last 4 or 5 years of the A-League, they've been consistently down the bottom. It's not a surprise that this year they've struggled. It's kind of been a build-up for the last, like I said, 4 or 5 years. So there was some excitement when Brebs was appointed, and you got a glimpse of the young players that played at the end of last year with him, and then him bringing in some pretty decent names and signings from largely the UK. And you thought, okay, maybe Melbourne Victory will come back, and we need a Melbourne Victory to come back. But injuries and form, and I guess probably everything that could go wrong with the foreign contingent at Melbourne Victory happened this year. You had, McManaman was injured for large parts. Shotton was injured for large parts. Gested was, he was on the sidelines for large parts. And the only real mainstay was Jacob Butterfield. So they struggled for consistency in their side, unfortunately. Obviously, Robbie Cruz, great player, also struggled a little bit fitness-wise, because a fit Robbie Cruz would absolutely destroy a lot of players in the A-League, and that was really disappointing to see. He couldn't quite get up to speed, but they've struggled everywhere this year. Jabby, actually, defensively, as I said, they were always chopping and changing. He never really consistently had the same backline for a variety of reasons. Goalkeepers changed throughout the year, and now Matty Acton came in and did a really good job at the back half. But a club like Melbourne Victory shouldn't be scraping into the six, like Dario said. They should be competing every year for top 2, top 3. So, they've appointed a new coach, as we all know very well, someone that is well known in the A-League, and someone that will defensively get them right. That's how he likes to coach. Popper is a very defensive-minded coach, and he will.
They won't cop 59.
Yeah, they won't.
Yeah, you'd be really surprised. We've seen him at West Sydney Wanderers and also Perth Glory. He sorts that defence out, and you speak to former players of his that have played with him. He's really anal on those small details. So that's going to be really interesting to see what players he brings in the off-season. But I look back and think the Melbourne Victory of old used to have Archie Thompson, Adrian Lay at the back, and then you have Broxy in the midfield. Australians that were the core kind of spine. And I know Broxy's still there now, but you really haven't replaced the other two with core Australian players, and I think that's been a bit of their failing. So I'll be surprised if you didn't see some movement there with some Australian players and giving them 3-4 year deals over the course of this off-season, and really trying to solidify a side around some Australian players.
Yeah, you're right. Dars makes a great point there. Conceded the most goals this year, Melbourne Victory. So defensively, that never helps. I mean, that's why you're probably finishing where you are. But excited for next year. I mean, Tony Popovic always does well in the A-League. Always does competitive. Always has a team that's hard to play against, I've felt. And a team he has coached that I guess Kama hasn't done the greatest this year, but I mean, always a very hard place to go. So, I mean, they always usually get good results at home, is Perth Glory. A relatively good team on paper. But
probably the best front four.
Yeah, I mean, really, they're a frightening team to play against.
Yeah, the season they've had it's been very surprising. Consider like what Daz said, front four, Castro, Fornaroli. Obviously, Economy just came back, but
been back for a
Keogh
few,
up
yeah.
there. But not just that. Like you look
Frightening.
at their midfield, the players they have everywhere over the park. There's not one that would struggle to get into majority of the teams around the league. But in terms of going to Perth, it's always a tough place. They've always had great crowds. They're always hard to play at home, and it doesn't really help when you play them at 3:00 in the afternoon. It's 37 degrees.
You need drinks breaks.
Yeah. I remember Geronimo one day, but he's spewing up after the game, just vomiting after the whistle. But yeah, it creates challenges, and I think people are a bit surprised, especially with foreigners when they come and play in the A-League, that they don't realise the travel that's involved in the game and the weather that they're about to come in and play. They're playing in summer, which they've never done before. So, and again, going there, it's hard. And not just that, then you've got the change in time shouldn't matter that much, but it does. It plays on your body a little bit, and that's why a lot of teams do tend to go there 2 days before, so they can get a training session in and get a couple of nights sleep before playing a game. You get but apart from that, them and Wellington, obviously the big ones where you travel.
Yeah, it's a strange one. I mean, Perth, the Dars you mentioned there again, the front four. I mean, seriously, going up against them every week. Fornaroli has probably one of the best records outside Jamie McLaren in the A-League over the past 5 to 6 seasons. And then Diego Castro, I mean, he's again arguably been probably the best player in the A-League for a number of years as well.
Definitely. So one of the most.
They'll be disappointed to finish up where they did. I actually remember, just speaking of the heat there, I don't know if you boys remember when we played Perth, because we were all playing together at this point, but William Gallis was playing for them, and I think it was one of his first games, and he come on for about 20 minutes at centre-back. And they did the Fox Sports interview afterwards, and they're asking him how it was. He goes, it's so hot. It's so hot. Mind you, I saw him that night at about 2 a.m. walking down the main street with a Magnum and a big bag of chips in his hand. So he seemed like he was enjoying himself.
What are you doing out at 2 a.m.?
I don't know, mate. Just celebrating life. That's why I didn't play long. But no, we speak of domestic travel, and being a Perth Glory player is one thing, but then making the travel all the way across the ditch to Wellington is another.
Yeah.
Now, Wellington, I tell you what, they were still within a chance up until last night till Adelaide sealed it. They'd be disappointed that they fell short. Any takes on them, Kama?
Well, it's hard for us travelling there, but they do it every few weeks under normal circumstances. Forget about the last 2 seasons. It was even tougher going there, especially when you played in Wellington. Just the win factor. Sometimes the ball would be coming back towards the 18-yard box from a goal kick. So plus that, and they were able to, even when you didn't play in Wellington, you played in Auckland or wherever, they were able to conjure up good crowds, especially when they had those one-off games in those other cities. So it was always nice travelling there because it got you out of the country, and it was always something new. It was actually a lot cooler. It was never hot there, so that was good. But in terms of Wellington, they're always thereabouts. They've always had decent sides, and they've kind of always just missed out. They're a bit like Tottenham, I think. For any Tottenham fans out there. But it's true. They're always thereabouts, but they've never kind of just made that last final step. So again, this year they've just missed out, and they've got a great team, and I think Ufuk Tale's done an amazing job, and it's great for them that he signed on again.
Definitely.
So again, just missed opportunity, I think.
I'll give some honourable mentions to their imports. I mean, that Tomo Hamed, he's got 10 goals this year. It's a good player.
Very
and then Davir as well, I think, is a super player.
One of the best in the league.
So,
He's great.
Yep, one of the best in the
those
league.
guys are exciting to watch. It's good to see good imports play for Wellington to support the Kiwi boys and the
And
other
they've got
Aussie
some
boys
good young
too.
Kiwi boys playing as well.
Yeah, which is great to see that progress. Western Sydney does. I mean, they're kind of. I was listening to Daniel Margush speak the other day. He's like, we kind of hit our straps a bit too late. But they started to feel like they were finding their groove towards the end of the season.
No, I don't think so.
No, what's your take on them this year? They signed a lot of players, new coach in Carl Robinson, as we mentioned earlier, but it didn't mesh enough to get into the finals.
I think they're probably the biggest disappointment not to make the 6. I think when you look at their squad, they signed Carl Robinson. He's the only overseas coach. He has experience in a league where a lot of rookie coaches were in their first season or 1.5 seasons or very early into their coaching careers. So squad, excellent. When you look at the depth, it's a very, very strong squad. So, I think for them it's just very disappointing. They had the capabilities winning 2 derbies, and then after that, then they'll just lose a game that you didn't think was possible for them to lose. So I don't think they ever really hit their straps, which they could. And I think for their fan base, which is incredible, when that place starts rocking, it's being there, especially at the old Wonderland at Parramatta, Pertek, it was unreal. And I think, they're another club that in the same sort of speak of Melbourne Victory that we need them to be good too.
Agreed.
Especially when they first came in those first few years, I think a lot of the other fan bases looked to them and tried to copy them in a sense.
The RBB, it was frightening.
Teams love to come up and play against us. They wanted to come away from home just because of that atmosphere, and there were some great nights there, and just that atmosphere adds to it. So,
yeah, obviously a former team in yours, and we speak of like a frightening front three. I actually think Bruce Kamau's a little underrated, but he's had a great season this year as well.
Great season,
again last night, or the last game, sorry.
No, he's been one that you probably, at the start of the season, when you look at everyone that they had, he's probably one that would fly under the radar, but he's definitely gone to the top of the list with his goals and his performances. But yeah, I think for them, they'll have to think a lot now in the off-season and make some big decisions.
Yeah. No, good points of view there. Western United is one that I was a little bit disappointed in, but only because I think they have some really super experienced players in this league. I mean, Alessandro Diamante is the biggest name in the league in regards from a CV point of view, arguably. Mark Rudin, a seasoned coach, knows the league inside out. Besart Berisha, the A-League's highest goal scorer. Durante's played in the league for Yonks. They've got some great players, even young players. I mean, that have played in the A-League for a long
also
time.
Very good.
But it didn't work out for them this year, finishing probably likely to finish in 10th or 9th spot. What was your take on them, Daz?
Yeah, it's a very interesting one because you look at the front three, front four with Berisha, with Diamante, Iker, Lockie Wells would come in and out of there. So, again, it's a great team. I watched them early in the season when they played Melbourne City, and they were excellent that day. Iker was one of the best players on the field, and they were probably unlucky to lose that day when I think J-Mac banged in too late and got all 3 points. But they looked very good that year, and I thought they'll definitely be there or thereabouts. So, but if we just go off their last 10, 1 win, 2 draws, 7 losses, and that's 7 losses in a row. In those 7 losses, they conceded 22 goals, and they only scored 3.
Wow. Frightening.
So I think that's, if we look at something, it's definitely that's their last 10, or let's just say their last 7.
Yeah.
Because that's averaging almost 3 goals a game. They're conceding, so it's very, very hard to win a game when you're conceding 3.
Bit of an annoying place to play as well, Geelong.
I think as well for them,
it's an unnecessary hour.
I don't even think they were at Geelong. They've been at Amy
they've
Park.
moved around.
They're sort of
that doesn't help either.
That doesn't, yeah. So with the squad that they have, it's I think it's a disappointing season for them, and they'll also have some thoughts in the off season, and it is a bit of an aging team, so especially in that front line. So it'll be interesting what they do there.
Another honourable mention to Diamante, the assist leader for the year so far. Before we do go into the finals, boys, I do appreciate rallying off the bottom 6. Condolences to them. There's always next year. Long pre-season, I must say, after experiencing them. But we talk about the final 6. They've had it. All must have had good years to be in this. The 6 have kind of popped around, bar Melbourne City, who really were the stable points for the year. But I'm really keen to get everyone's opinions on a couple of teams that sort of did really well here. So just from my perspective, I've got my sheet flying around somewhere. Johnny boy, we know you're close to home up there in Brisbane. You do a bit of work with the Brisbane boys. You must have been happy to see them have such a great season so far. At the moment, in the top 3, it's an amazing output from the boys.
Yeah, it's been a really solid year, I think you'd say. I mean, it's such a tight league, as we've all talked about last week before they played. They could have been borderline missing out in the finals, and now all of a sudden they're cemented in the finals and in 3rd place. So they've had a really solid year. You look at their team on paper, they've got a lot of experience. They're defensively really, really strong. They've got some young players up front that are exciting, and Dylan Wenzel-Halls, Joey Champness that are fast. Riku Danzaki, the Japanese import, he's only 20. He's been a great breath of fresh air for everyone this year. We talk about bringing foreigners in, and Brisbane actually brought in a foreigner that's young. We tend to bring in majority of times.
Yeah, you don't see that too often, do you?
Oh. No. And I remember at the time Warren Moon copped a bit of slack. I can't even speak. A bit of slack for that when he came in.
Yeah.
Just because people are saying you're going to play him for a year, then you're going to lose him. What's the point? But it's the same thing with the older boys. You're never really going to sell an older player on. So it's about output, and Riku's been really good for Brisbane Roar. So I think defensively they're really rock solid. They've got, in my view, one of the best keepers and organisers in the A-League. They've got some experience at the back. They've got some solid players in the midfield. Jay O'Shea's been a great find.
Yeah.
And Ramanak Barry, a young boy who's been around the league for quite a while, been at Brisbane Roar youth team, and Brisbane Roar went down to Melbourne Victory, come back to Brisbane. He's been excellent this year. So I think they've had a really good year. I think anything can happen in the finals, and if they do get a third or fourth finish and play it at home first up,
that's going to be a big plus for them, I reckon.
I think so too. Yeah, anything's possible. You talked about Western United earlier about their travel schedule, and Brisbane Roar are very much the same. I was speaking to Warren Moon last week, and he was saying it'd be nice to have a bit of a break over the next couple of weeks with the final series, because he hasn't planned a session for the last 5 weeks because they've simply been playing, traveling, recovering, playing, traveling, recovering. So now they've got a week between games. It'd be nice to actually refresh some of the boys and have a normal kind of lead into a week for a training perspective. So
agreed.
They've been solid. They've been good.
That's good. I reckon there's a few players in that team that can really hurt any opposition. So I wouldn't write off Brisbane Roar going into finals. Our home team, boys, I say our home team, our old team, Adelaide United. Now, we're all very good friends with the football director, Bruce Jitte, who we had on this podcast in our last episode, who's emphasised this year a lot of youth. He gave the captaincy at the start of the year to Stefan Mork, who was only 26 years old, which is relatively young captain. But they've played a lot of young boys in a lot of key positions this year, which is something that I said to him I was really interested in, from the goalkeepers to the centre-backs to the midfielders all the way up to the strikers. But they've managed to mesh that team well with some experience in the likes of Tommy Urich, Craig Goodwin, a couple of their Spanish imports, Ben Halloran, and another name as well, Johnny. Have you been impressed with them? I know they confirmed their spot in the six last night, but they were, throughout the season, probably doing better than where they finished at the moment.
Yeah, they've certainly got attacking players, young, exciting, attacking South Australians generally, right? That was the whole onus of Adelaide, the way they wanted to go. And they started the year really, really well. I mean, you talked about Morky there. He started with, I think, 6 or 7 goals in the first 10, 12 rounds. He was flying, and I think his kind of form with a couple of injuries he had kind of coincided with the team dropping away a little bit the back half of the year. But certainly they've got weapons there that can hurt anyone. The Torre brothers, Yengi hopefully be fit, Tommy Urich, Craig Goodwin's been great. Ben Halloran was borderline Socceroos contention. There was a lot of chat around him. He had a fantastic year, I thought. So, I think defensively that, they missed Elsie last night with suspension. I think he's been a great solidifier this year at the back. I think they're a little bit defensively short there. That's somewhere I think teams look at them and think we can get at them a little bit. Attacking wise, they've got, speed, they've got youth, they've got enthusiasm, and they've got experience with those three I talked about with Tommy, Craig Goodwin, and also Ben Halloran. So they've got a mix of everything. JBD, that they could do damage, but their recent form would kind of say that maybe not this year, but finals are anyone's game.
Yeah, good point. I guess for final, we've all experienced that it is, no matter what the Adelaide team is, trying to win at Coopers in finals is never going to be easy. It's not going to be a gift. Another interesting place to go, that a club that always punches above their weight, Central Coast and Kama. These guys were on top for a good part of the season, which was, I think, great for the league, but a lot of people didn't preempt. I mean, they've done well to finish in the top 6. A few highlights for them this year, but I mean, you watch much of them. What was your take on Central Coast?
Mate, no one would have said they would have been in the top 6. Just from their the last couple of years, obviously Sturgis has gone in there and done an amazing job. You look at the amount of young players that he's been playing. He's done well with his imports this season. Obviously, there's a couple of highlights in Quoll and Tonyik who have been brilliant. So yeah, again, tough place to go, and as you said, they've always punched above their weight. And obviously, I can remember when they were really good under Graham Arnold, and I guess since then it's been a roller coaster ride for the club. So to see them do well again, I think it's been great. Not just great, well, it's great for the club especially, but it's for the league as well, because it's just thrown another dynamic in. And I think people were kind of waiting for them to kind of just stop winning, but they haven't. Yeah. So it's been really good, and just I think they've had, I think they're third with clean sheets in the
Defensively,
league.
yeah, that's another thing. I mean, you mentioned Tongic there.
You know,
just got his call up to the Socceroos. Defensively, he's been unbelievable.
Yeah, so he's done well
A
there.
rock.
You know, Clisby's gone there and kind of rejuvenated himself as well. He's been great. So that and, you know, what else I was looking at? Besides their clean sheets, even goals conceded, they're second best besides Melbourne City.
Oh, that's a great point.
So just in terms of that, you can just see how they must have done a lot of work on that part of the game during preseason. It's paid dividends. Plus with, you know, Simon, you know, causing all the havoc he does with the young and youthful boys around him.
Johnny's had a few run-ins, I'm sure, with him.
Mate, how good's he been?
Yeah,
like,
he's
seriously,
been
like,
great,
good
man. People
He's
writing him off
been
all the time. People been writing him off for 10 years. So,
Yeah.
and he just keeps coming back. Like, and he's
Credit where
been,
credit's due.
yeah, 100%. He's been banging in goals, and he's got a lot of good young, willing players around him with some experience. And you know, the recipes has turned out really well, and they're in the finals, and they could be anyone's. They could be a dark horse. They could do anything.
They could be a dark horse. I do think the loss of Tongic will hurt them. But newly formed MacArthur, Cammer. I mean, this was a team that's come in this year from the heart of Sydney. I mean, they've signed some pretty strong players. They made a really strong statement early, getting the likes of Mark Milligan, Adam Federici. A season Matt Derbyshire arguably has had a really good season from a return of games to goals. I mean, do you think they'd be happy coming finals their first year where they are, or do you think they had a bolder statement to win the league? I mean,
I think their first season, you're going to be happy making the finals, no doubt. But I think if you look at their team across the board, the experience they've got's unbelievable.
yeah,
Take away Derbyshire, got Milligan, who's, you know, had a great career. He just announced his retirement, so
yeah,
congrats to him. But you know, even, you know, Franich at the back, you got Federici in goals. They've just got players across the board that are going to do a job for you week in, week out. So it's no surprise that, you know, obviously when Ante Milicic got the job, his recruiting process was to be kind of stable and just to give themselves every opportunity to make the top six. And they've done that. And I think they've kind of got that right blend. And again, they're another team that could probably do anything come finals, especially with, you know, with the experience that they have. All those players in that team have played in big games.
That's right.
They're A-League winners. They've been to World Cups. Derbyshire's played at a high level in England. So, again, anyone's going to be upset when they get knocked out. They'll be going to, I think, just to win it like any other team in the top
I
six.
think
You
so
have
too.
every opportunity in this competition.
I wouldn't want to play them in the finals, put it that way. And that might be a revealing for my Smokey for the finals.
You know,
but
again, a young player like Dennis Johnroe.
yeah,
You know,
super player.
He's left Melbourne City, got an opportunity to go to MacArthur, had a great season, and now he's gets a call up.
Yeah,
So,
definitely. Two of the stables, I guess, for this season. I mean, Sydney FC, you can't go past for what they've done over the league for the last 4 or 5 years, and the consistency they've had as a squad has been remarkable. Dars, I mean, you played them quite a bit when they started in their peak when you were at the Western Sydney Wanderers. I mean, you've been impressed with them this year. Is it what you've expected of them, I guess?
I think so, yeah. I think you can always, at the start of the season, especially with their squad, and they're very stable. They've maintained a lot of their players that have had success. So I think they've tried to look after certain players like Ninkovic's, and they've brought back Bobo. Now they've brought back Lafondra. So they're a very dangerous team, and I think the top two are by far the best top two, with Melbourne City being by far the best team, Sydney then being by far the second best team, and then the next four come in after that. But yeah, with Sydney, I think it's a very stable team, a lot of experience. I think what Arnie had from before, and now Corrick has come in and he's just maintained that and added his element to it, and they've been extremely successful of late. And I think going back to all the teams, as much as we've enjoyed the young players, I think going off history and going off this season, the ones that are playing the more experienced, they're the ones that relatively are always at the top. If you look at Sydney FC, you know, Arnie before he said, I'm not here to play kids, I'm not here to develop, and very successful. Melbourne City, I think the youngest was 21, Connor Metcalf, which can we classify 21 years old as young? Probably not. And Sydney as well, not too many young players. Adelaide, as much as we say young, and they have had a lot of young players come through, I think when you put their best 11, there's no young players. There's Craig Goodwin, there's Tommy Juric, there's Ben Halloran, their midfield as well, Stefan Mork, Harvey, then maybe Dorigo, but the back four as well: Strain, Kiddo, Jakobsen, LC. So, and maybe Delionov in goals is probably your youngest, who is also in his 20s. So, I think that's the big thing, you know, finding that right mix, and that's why I think those two are at the top. And obviously, great squads with great players, and
they've always had that. They've kept that back four for Sydney has been one that's just had some consistency. I'm just looking at the stat sheet now. The most clean sheets this season. I mean, if you're not conceding goals, you've got more chance of getting points. So, credit where credit's due. I tell you what, I don't want to face them in the finals as well. But I do, before we go into a bit of the fun in our yearly awards, which we'll scoot through, I do want to touch on Melbourne City and acknowledge an unbelievable season they've had. Obviously, Dars, you're in the inner sanctum there. You've been a former Melbourne City player. I think we can all agree the football they've been playing has been electrifying. Jamie McLaren, an electrifying season as well. Craig Noon, I thought, was an outstanding player as well for them going forward. Inside, were they expecting to win this year? Were they confident with Kisnorbo coming in as coach?
I think so, yeah. I think so. I think with Eric, everything he started last season, and they played very well. And then this year they added very good players with Andy Naboo especially coming in. Connor having another year developing, and now he's obviously taking off in leaps and bounds, going to the Socceroos. Nuno Reis at the back as well, brought in. Goody's again been unbelievable, rewarded with the Socceroos call-up. But I think, by far the best team in the country this year has been Melbourne City. With, Jamie McLaren firing on all cylinders up front, and just watching them, their training and that, they work very, very hard at training. PK has done a phenomenal job with how they work. And if there's one goal in the first derby, I believe, when Connor scored the first one, if you watch Connor, he's pointing to pass to Jamie McLaren, and it's something that they worked on into Macca. He knows to go behind, goes in 1-on-1, puts it in top corner in the near post. So that's a lot of things, very, very small details, and I think that's why they are where they are, because they work in very fine details. And then when they have the ball, they're so confident. I think as the wins kept coming and progressing, especially in the derbies where they put Melbourne victory to the sword, and that's where they've just gone confidence now. But again, for the top two, it's going to be very interesting now in the finals, each team losing 3.
Yeah, exactly.
Sydney FC losing 3 at the back, goalkeeper, centre-back, right-back, and Melbourne City pretty much losing their spine, centre-back, midfielder, striker. So that's going to be now, it makes the finals very, very interesting. I think at full strength, unless something happens crazy, you would expect a Sydney FC Melbourne City final.
Agreed. I tell you what, it's a good segue into the next section, but I do want to acknowledge Jamie McLaren, 25 goals this year, former guest on the Unlaced podcast, 100 goals in all competitions, but in the A-League across his career, which is essentially is something we have to acknowledge and give credit to. So well done, Jambo.
And I think PK deserves a lot of recognition as well.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean,
and the coaching staff, and like they said, they worked very, very hard in pre-season. So I think to PK and the coaching staff, a lot of credits due, as much as to Mako and all the players. They've all done phenomenal, and they deserve it. And let's see what happens next.
Yeah, let's see. So, boys, finals predictions. We're going to go with Smokey for the finals each, and then we're going to get our prediction of who wins it. So I want you to pick a team and just give me one sentence why they're your Smokey or why they're going to win it. So I might start with myself. So my Smokey for the finals is MacArthur. I just think the experience, I wouldn't want to play them in the finals. Mark Milligan's last year, Matt Derbisher's finding some hot form at the right point of the season. I just think that there's some room for them to actually come in and swoop it with the players missing from Melbourne City, and Dars mentioned Sydney as well. But I just think Sydney in finals know how to win. So Sydney is my choice to go ahead and grab the trophy this year. Cammer?
Smokey, I'm going to go Mariners, just because they started
CCM.
off. Yeah, they started off so well, and they had a little slump during the season, but finals here just throw up anything. You don't know what you're going to get, and I think just they're kind of one of those teams that they've done well to get to where they've been, because no one expected them to. So if they go on and push, it'd be phenomenal. Uh-huh. And I think Sydney FC.
Sydney FC too?
I just think, even though you take away the 3 players, I just think with the experience heads that they've got all over the field, and they just seem to always get it done.
They know how to win. Johnny boy, what about you? You're Smokey and your winner. Who you got?
You could probably guess who my smoky is.
Bris Vegas.
Yeah, look. I mean, any of those teams, as we know, could probably sneak in. The top two are clearly the favourites, but I will go Brisbane. I've spent a lot of time with the players and seen a lot of the stuff they do this year. And like I said earlier, they're defensively the second best. I think they're very strong. They've got a solid, experienced backline, and Dars touched on experienced players earlier on. So I think defensively they're really strong, and I'm hopeful that some of the attacking boys can click. Dylan Windsor-Hall has been a little bit quiet recently with goals. He's due to kick back in. Alex Parsons has been a great find the last part of the season, and Joey Champness has been a little bit quiet the last few weeks. So if those two of those three can click into gear in these effectively one-off games, they could certainly cause teams problems because defensively they're very strong. But same as you guys, I'm a bit boring. I think Sydney FC are very, very strong. Bringing back Lafondra has made a massive difference to their side. They're going to score goals. There's a guarantee there that if he doesn't score, Bobo will score. If Bobo doesn't score, Costa will score. They have goals in them. Defensively, they sit quite deep, so they don't get caught out with some of the pace. They do have an experienced side, but they sit deep to counteract the lack of pace they may have at the back and teams look at. So they're still, for me, as Daz said, with Melbourne City losing a few of their players, I think Sydney FC would be the favourites for me to win the A-League.
Daz, who you got? Surely you're going to break up with Melbourne City here. Surely they're not going to win it, losing Jamie McLaren.
Melbourne City win the grand final.
Wow.
You lose.
With Connor Metcalf, Curtis Good, Jamie McLaren.
Listen to me. Roston Griffiths, Curtis Good. Not a bad substitution.
Yes.
Not bad. Griffith's
that
been
I can
excellent.
agree with.
Griffo in my team of the year. So a team of the year player comes in for Goody.
Wow.
We got Aidan O'Neill in the 6. He's now finding form coming back from an injury. We take out Connor. We can go Florin with Luna. It's not bad.
Yeah.
The only one is if Andy Naboo can find fitness before the finals, I think Melbourne City are a very, very great chance.
Okay.
My smoky, Adelaide United.
Wow, Adelaide. Really?
I think as well, if they get their starting 11, if they're fit and ready to go, I think even with Toure or with Tommy Urich, Goodwin, they can always produce something. Halloran, frightening speed.
Agreed.
They can play good football. They've got the experience.
It's a good smoky. It is a good smoky.
The only thing I worry about Adelaide is away from home form. I think at Cooper Stadium, it's one thing, but finals are a one-off game. But
they're away first, aren't they?
Yeah.
They will be away first, yes.
Cameron's just shut him down there beautifully.
No, I've said it. I've said it myself.
Reiterating what he's saying.
Yeah, he's just backing me up. I think just if they can...
Who scores goals for City if McLaren doesn't play?
Great question.
Naboo, Nooney, Collar. If Collar plays, I think there's also Tilio that's been doing well. I think there's just, in a final, it would probably be one goal. Who would have thought Ryan Grant would score the winner in the last grand final? The right back, what a ball from Bratsy, chest finish. So, and the other goal scorer was Harrison Delbridge. That was disallowed, probably a bit iffy decision, but there's your two goal scorers in the last grand final. So, you can't. I would love to see a Melbourne City final just because Lafondra, Bobo, that's goals. But with Sydney, the way they play, I think you don't have to worry too much other than Costa. Ninkovic, big danger man, always has been quality. So, but the way they play dropping off, Melbourne City with Scott Jamieson inverting, they've got confidence.
Oh, there it is.
I
inverting fullback.
I don't think anyone's really figured it out. So even with Sydney FC, I think Melbourne City have done well against Sydney, so I would love to see a grand final rematch, and I think that would be a tactical, also a great show with a team that wants to be on the front foot to Sydney FC that have excellent players, can play as well, but more like you spoke before that want to drop off and not maybe soak up the pressure, but they get into that block defending mid block, and then when they have the ball, then we know what they can do as well with it. And again, it takes one goal in a grand final.
Well said, well summarised, Daz. We're going to get into the fun part now. I tell you what, we've done this before. It's called the Lace 'em Up Quickfire 5. Now, we started this with Ryan Grant. We did it with Bruce Jitte, and I will say, Bruce, knowing Bruce, when I asked him for instinctive answers to questions, it took 2 minutes for a response. So I'm relying on you guys here to be a little bit more intuitive and quicker with this. But we are going to go through 5 questions, yearly awards. All right, so we're going to go around the table. Everyone has pretty much instinctively your opinions on the question and shoot away. So, Cameron, we'll start with you. We'll go to Dars and into Johnny. Manager of the year.
Manager of the year, Paddy.
Dars.
Patrick is Norba.
Yep.
Johnny?
Because Norba.
Yep, everyone's in agreement on that. Best player. Johnny Warren Medal.
Johnny Warren Medal, Jay McLaren.
J-Mac.
J-Mac. Unanimous, Johnny, or you got someone else?
Unlaced Villa.
Ooh, I like that.
Not
I
bad.
like that. That's a good shout too, actually.
Great player.
Yeah, I think you could put him, probably Ninko, Diamante, and
Yeah.
Castro. You could put all of them in that
They'll
category.
be fighting.
Close your eyes and pull out a name, and I don't think anyone would be upset.
Agreed.
But J-Mac, I think he deserves it.
Deserves it.
for
I think so too.
championship winning team, highest goal scorer by far, had assists as well, great in the link-up play, so he's had a phenomenal season.
Best young player.
Gonna have to go with what's his name? Who's the boy at Melbourne City?
Connor Metcalf.
Yeah,
Metcalf.
Connor Metcalf. Yeah, had a brain lapse then. Yeah,
Yeah,
Connor
yeah.
Metcalf. I think he's had a great season.
Socceroo. He's deserved it after the year he's had.
Connor Metcalf for me too.
Johnny.
I think Connor's had a great year. I'm going to go a little smoky. I thought Denny Jonaro had a great year.
Great
he was
call
my very,
too.
He was my very close
Yep.
second.
Yes, honourable mention there, Johnny.
Honourable.
All right, we'll go with you, Johnny, on this. Best signing. Who's had the biggest impact for you? It's a tough one.
It is. It is a tough one. Are we talking about new players or just general this year?
I'll say general. They can be They can have joined a different team if they've been previously, but just a new signing to any team.
I think Andy Naboo's had a great impact at Melbourne City.
Good call. Dars?
Yeah, I went probably Naboo, and I'll throw in Iker Guaruxena from Western
good
United.
player.
Yeah.
Like him a lot.
He's done well as well.
However you say that guy's last name. Yeah. Dad's got the pronunciations on tap.
Just throw my Spanish out there.
Guaruxena. Nah, he's been great.
I hope that's good. I tried.
I think he's been great. I think if he was in, they haven't had a great season, but you put him in one of the top 3 or 4 teams, just in terms of his quality, he's been outstanding.
And work
Yeah.
rate too,
Yeah,
and just
he's-
everything.
Yep.
Great. I'm going to join in on this one. The Visa Player of the Year, and then I'll palm over to you, Kama. But we mentioned him before, Johnny. Riku Danzaki. I like him, a young kid. He's scoring goals. I like him because he attacks the space every time he gets a ball and makes the defenders think. Kama, who you got?
Young. What's the question?
Visa Player of the Year. Visa Player.
Visa. De Villa.
De Villa.
Yeah. He's different. I love him. I like watching him play,
He's a
man.
good player.
He's a good player.
It's top.
I've gone Davila as well.
Yep. Johnny?
Yep.
De
He's
Villa?
my boy.
Yeah.
Unlaced Villa.
Ulysse De Villa.
A big loss for them.
I
as well.
will say just previously on that last question as well. I think Ollie Bozanic's had an amazing year as well at
Yeah,
Central Coast.
Definitely.
Yep.
He's largely why, in my view, why they've been where they've been. His leadership experience in the centre of the midfield has been awesome. So he's an honourable mention for signing of the year as well.
You've got him in your team of the season, Johnny, which we're going to jump in just very quickly, which some will say has a bit of a wavering bias to Queenslanders and left footers. But do you want to take us to the Jonny Mckain team of the season? Partnered
Yes,
and
I
plugged
will.
and sponsored by the Unlaced Podcast.
Yep, certainly. There's no inversion fullbacks on this one. So
There's no surprise. What are you playing, Johnny? 4-4-2 deep block.
yeah, it was hard to do the team of the year this year because obviously we've touched on there's so many new players this year, so many exciting players, and so many experienced players that have actually played really well. So my team of the year was Jamie Young in goals. I thought he was outstanding. Honourable mentions to Birighitti and also Adam Federici.
Yep.
Ryan Grant at right back. I think Straney had a great year, but Ryan Grant is just consistent enough. Ruan Tonic and Curtis Good, central defence. Both
Hard
of
to
them
go
were
past.
outstanding and well recognised and great reward for them being called up to the Socceroos. And the left back, as much as I think Jamar did have a great year, I think Corey Brown, a Brisbane boy.
He had
he's,
7
I think,
assists
second or
this year,
third place
Corey.
defence.
His left foot one was working.
He's had a great year. I think he's versatile. He doesn't get the plaudits he deserves, works hard and creates a lot of opportunities. So that's my back four. In midfield, I've got Connor Metcalf, Ollie Bozanic, 2 lefties, as we talked about. And just in front of them, I've got Jay O'Shea. I thought he was a linchpin for Brisbane Roar this year, and he continues to dominate largely most games. He's got a huge amount of touches per game. Everything good that Brisbane Roar do goes through him. So I think he's been a really good platform and play this year from Jay O'Shea. And then up front, I've got my boy Uli Devia in the hole. And up front, I've got J-Mac and Bruno Fornaroli. Now, Bruno was a little bit of an outsider. People say he hasn't had a great year, but he still scored 13 goals.
Yeah, that's a good point.
J-Mac and
year for him.
J-Mac and Bruno up front. And honourable mentions, obviously, to Craig Noon. I thought he was outstanding this year. And his assists, Ninkovic, Diamante, Simo, and also Tim Payne from Wellington Phoenix. I thought he was outstanding in a central defensive role, and he's used to playing right back. So that's my team of the year.
Bloody beautiful, Johnny. Kama, did you have anything different? I mean, I tend to agree with a lot of Johnny's names there. I think you've got a lot of overlap as well.
Yeah, got a bit of overlap. I got Jamo at left back just because I just think he's had a great season. They've been very good.
Captain the winning team.
And, Corey Brown's had a great season as well. You talk about his assists. It's been great. But, yeah, good, Tonjik. I've just got my change up front, I think. I've just added Diamante and Kamau and I've with McLaren, and I just think Kamau's back half of the season's been great. And I think he's going to go on to bigger and better things, hopefully for himself. And people talk about Diamante's kind of lack of goals. I think he only got one this season, but I think he was leading in assists. So, and just, he has that wow factor. People, when you watch him, you just want to keep watching him. So, yeah, bit of an overlap, but that's my team of the season there.
Beautiful. Dars, anything different on your end? The Dario Vidosic team of the season? What have you got?
Just Melbourne City starting 11. No, I've gone a little bit different. Jamie Young's probably very close, but I've gone Tommy Glover. Youngie can play at the back, but Glover has been threading balls over the top, everything that he's been asked to do, and he's been very, very good. Shot stopper. Ryan Grant, Jamo, good, and I've gone Ryan McGowan. Sydney
Is that a strong year?
Best defence. Conceded the fewest goals, rewarded with a Socceroos call-up, so he gets rewarded for my team of the season. I will go, there was a toss-up between Bratsy and Griffo, but considering the attacking that I want in front, I'll have Griffo there, because I think when he was in that number 6, especially early on in the season, City were a different team. When he was there, his understanding, he can drop in a centre-back. He was one of the key players this season, so he's in for me. Connor and Davila as my 2 10s. I'll have Ninkovic on the left, who for me is arguably one of the greatest players to play in the A-League.
We haven't mentioned him too much this show, but what a player he is. He's a smoky to just win the championship for Sydney. Really, off his own back.
He's always his number one threat for Sydney FC, considering everyone else. But all their play goes through him, and he's just the smarts, how he can create space for himself, how he drops in, the timing, his touch, just everything. And J-Mac obviously up front, and then my other winger, Daniel De Silva.
Wow, De Silva. Interesting. I mean, reward Central Coast. He's had a good year. Yep. Great young player. A lot of hype around his talent, so it's good to see him starting to.
Another one on the ball, very, very good. Work rate as well, very, very good. Always wants it. Very tricky around the box, hard to play against. But so I think, he deserves a spot as well. I think there's obviously Nabuz, there's Nunes, O'Shea's, Diamantes, Tonjik, Bojanic, Bratsy. There's a lot of players, and I think
Bojanic? What is that?
There's Johnny.
Bozanic, mate.
Bozanic.
I tell you what, boys.
You can't really
How many City boys ended up in your team of the year?
I think it was 4
1,
or
2,
5.
3, 4, 5, 6.
6, Jesus does.
Mate,
that's unwavering bias, folks.
By far clear. They deserve it.
Good. I mean, look, it's hard to disagree with how good their season's been. Boys, I just want to thank you for coming on the show. It's been a hell of an overview, a hell of a finals preview, which should kick off next week. As mentioned, we have been airing this with a game to go for all A-League teams in the regular season. So the finals is coming. We've all called our smokies. We've all called our winners. It's been a great year for the game with the TV deal. We've got more excitement coming with the Women's World Cup. Johnny, Dars, Kama, thank you very much, you legends. We appreciate your support for the show and your expert comment. To tell you what, the wisdom was something else.
Cheers, JBD.
Thank you.
Thanks, JBD.
No worries,
good
guys.
luck to the boys in the finals. It's going to be interesting.
Yes,
definitely
we will
be.
see.
Looking forward to it. Looking forward to it.
Looking forward to it, everyone.
Stockaroos, Matildas, Ollie Roos games on as well. So plenty of football over the next month.
Bloody oath. All right, folks. Thank you very much. See you soon.
Enjoy.